At Eleanor's 70th birthday party, after 50 years of friendship, she pointed at me, accusing me of being a traitor. I stood there, stunned. Holding the gift I'd spent months creating, I simply whispered, "Happy birthday, Eleanor," and walked out. But that wasn't the end. That was just the beginning of a story about betrayal, deceit, and what happens when true friends turn into bitter enemies. Follow my story. Like, share, and let us know where you are listening from. The calendar had been circled for months. Eleanor's 70th birthday. 50 years of friendship. I, Beatrice, had poured my heart into her gift. A scrapbook filled with photographs, letters, and ticket stubs from 5 decades of shared laughter and tears. From our first teaching jobs at Lincoln High to watching our children grow, every page was a testament to a bond I thought unbreakable. I even found a delicate pair of pearl earrings, similar to the ones she gave me on my 50th birthday, a symbolic gesture of our enduring connection. My excitement buzzed as I carefully wrapped them. In the weeks leading up to the party, Eleanor called me often. Her voice, usually warm and bright, was unusually anxious, even curt. "You are coming, aren't you, Beatrice?" she'd ask, almost demanding. "You haven't forgotten the date?" I brushed it off, attributing her unusual tone to the stress of organizing a big event at the country club. Eleanor always worried about perfection, I reassured her each time. "Of course, I wouldn't miss it for the world, my dear." The evening arrived. I dressed in my best blue silk dress, the one Eleanor always admired, and pinned the pearl brooch she'd given me years ago to my lapel. Stepping out of the car at the Grandview Country Club, I felt a familiar warmth in my chest. This was Eleanor's moment, and I was honored to share it with her. Inside, the grand ballroom was already filling with familiar faces. I spotted Sophia, Eleanor's daughter, near the entrance. "Sophia, dear," I exclaimed, moving to hug her. She returned my embrace stiffly, her smile tight. "Aunt Beatrice, so glad you could make it. Your table is number 15. In the far corner." She gestured vaguely, and then quickly moved on, her behavior odd and distant. I followed her direction, navigating through clusters of elegantly dressed guests. Table 15 was indeed tucked away, almost behind a large decorative pillar, next to the swinging doors of the kitchen. I sat alone for a long time, watching others greet each other with effusive hugs and clinks of champagne glasses. Old friends, people I'd known for decades through Eleanor, walked past, their gazes lingering on me, whispers following their turns. No one came to say hello. A cold knot began to form in my stomach. The warmth of anticipation had been replaced by a chilling sense of unease. Then, Eleanor made her grand entrance. The music swelled, and a hush fell over the room. She looked absolutely stunning in a shimmering emerald green gown, her silver hair styled perfectly. She smiled, radiant, as she surveyed the admiring crowd. For a fleeting moment, her eyes met mine across the room. I smiled, a small wave lifting my hand. But her gaze didn't hold. It flickered away quickly, almost dismissively, as she continued to scan the room as if she hadn't seen me. The knot tightened. Slowly, other guests began to filter to table 15. They were polite strangers, mostly distant relatives of Eleanor's husband or new business acquaintances. The conversation was pleasant but superficial. Nobody mentioned my long friendship with Eleanor. Nobody asked how I knew her. It was as if our shared history, the 5 decades of our lives intertwined, had simply been erased from the narrative of this celebratory evening. I tried to bring up an old anecdote, a memory of Eleanor from our youth, but the conversation quickly shifted, leaving my words hanging in the air. The feeling of being isolated, of being intentionally overlooked, became undeniable. Arthur, Eleanor's husband, rose to give the first toast. His voice, thick with emotion, praised Eleanor's loyalty, her honesty, her unwavering character. "She's always been a rock, a true and genuine person," he said, raising his glass. I nodded, a pang of confusion still warring with my love for Eleanor. This was the Eleanor I knew, the Eleanor I cherished. Why was everything else so wrong? Then, the true shock came. Eleanor herself took the stage. She smiled, but it was a hard, fixed smile. Her voice, when she spoke, was firm, almost icy. She scanned the room, then her eyes locked directly on mine. My breath caught in my throat. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," she began, her voice carrying clearly. "But there are some who pretend to be friends, who smile to your face while they stab you in the back." My heart hammered against my ribs, she continued, her voice rising. "A traitor, who spreads lies and tries to undermine everything you've built." Then, she raised a hand, her finger pointing directly at me, at table 15, at Beatrice. The spotlight of the room felt like it had narrowed to a single, burning beam on my face. "Thank you," she declared, her voice ringing with a cold finality, "for showing me that not every friendship survives the test of time." Gasps rippled through the room. Whispers turned into open stares. I sat frozen, the warmth of the pearls on my lapel suddenly feeling like a brand. My mind screamed, "What? What are you talking about?" But no sound came out. My world had shattered into a million pieces. My hands were shaking, but a strange clarity settled over me. There was no explanation possible here, no defense I could mount in this public execution. Slowly, deliberately, I stood up. The scrapbook and the small box with the earrings felt like lead in my hands. I gently placed them back into my purse, snapping the clasp shut. My voice was steady, surprisingly calm, as I looked directly at Eleanor, who still stood on stage, her eyes burning into mine. "Happy birthday, Eleanor," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, yet loud enough for her to hear. Then, I turned and walked out, my head held high, leaving the stunned silence of the room behind me. It wasn't until I was safely inside the taxi, the city lights blurring outside the window, that the tears finally came, hot and unstoppable. 50 years. The taxi driver, a kind man, asked if I was all right. I just shook my head, unable to speak. I replayed fragments of our life together, us, two young women, nervous and excited on our first day teaching at Lincoln High, sharing secrets over cheap coffee in our tiny apartments, being each other's maid of honor, holding hands through miscarriages, celebrating births, guiding each other through the grief of losing parents. She was my confidant, my anchor. How could she believe I was a traitor? How could she do this to me? As the initial shock began to recede, a name surfaced in my mind. Serafina Vance. Eleanor's new friend. Wealthy, glamorous, with sharp eyes that seemed to constantly assess and judge, Serafina had entered Eleanor's life like a whirlwind a few months ago, filling it with expensive lunches and exclusive events. I remembered Serafina's subtle digs, her dismissive glances, the way she made me feel like an outdated relic whenever I was around them. Had Serafina poisoned Eleanor's mind? Was she behind this impossible, devastating accusation? Clutching my purse, the unpresented gift a heavy weight inside, I vowed to find out. I would not let 50 years of friendship be destroyed by lies without a fight. The night was a torment. I lay awake. The image of Eleanor's pointing finger burned into my mind. Every word she'd uttered, every cruel accusation, echoed in the silent room. Traitor. Lies. Stabbed in the back. My mind reeled, trying to make sense of it, to find a single instance, a tiny seed of truth that could have grown into such venomous public humiliation. There was nothing, just a gaping void where my oldest friendship used to be. Tears had dried, replaced by a cold, sickening ache. I didn't sleep, not really. I just drifted in a hazy state of disbelief and profound hurt, counting the minutes until dawn. The first hint of morning light brought the shrill ring of my phone. It was Brenda, my next-door neighbor, her voice hushed and urgent. "Beatrice, are you awake? Have you checked your email?" she asked, her tone heavy with concern. Eleanor sent something out. To everyone. My heart sank. So the public spectacle wasn't enough. Eleanor was taking this further. I stumbled to my computer, my fingers trembling as I opened my inbox. There it was, an email from Eleanor, sent to what looked like our entire shared social circle: book club members, church committee volunteers, neighborhood acquaintances, even some distant relatives. The subject line read, "A warning about betrayal." My stomach clenched as I began to read. The words were a brutal assault. Eleanor accused me of trying to seduce Arthur, her husband, 3 years ago, claiming I'd sent him inappropriate letters. She then detailed how I had supposedly spread vicious rumors about her dwindling finances, painting her as a spendthrift on the brink of ruin. And worst of all, she alleged I had betrayed Sophia's deepest confidences, specifically about the struggles in Sophia's marriage, sharing private details with anyone who would listen. Each sentence was a fresh stab, a lie so outrageous, so contrary to my very nature, that I could barely breathe. The accusations were specific, fabricated details that made them sound frighteningly real. I stared at the screen, tears blurring the text. She wasn't just trying to humiliate me. She was systematically destroying my reputation, stripping away decades of trust and respect within the community we both shared. The book club, the church charity committee, the bridge group, every part of my social life was now poisoned by these vile lies. I saw my world crumbling around me. The phone rang again. It was Carol, the head of the church charity committee. Her voice was strained, uncomfortable. "Beatrice, dear, about the upcoming fundraiser," she began, her words carefully chosen. "Recent developments and the unfortunate drama. We think it would be best if you stepped back for a while, just until things settle down." My heart raced. "Carol, no, it's not true. None of it is true. You know me. You know Eleanor. How could you believe such things?" My voice was desperate, pleading. But Carol was firm. "We just need to avoid any distractions, Beatrice. For the good of the committee." She hung up before I could say anything more. The silence that followed was deafening, suffocating. I needed answers. I needed to understand. Desperate, I picked up the phone and called Sophia. Perhaps she, Eleanor's own daughter, would listen. Perhaps she would have some explanation, some insight into her mother's sudden madness. It rang several times before she answered, her voice cold, distant, entirely devoid of the warmth I had always known. "Sophia, it's Beatrice," I started, my voice trembling. "What is happening?" "Your mother's email, the party. It's all lies. You know me. You know I would never." Sophia cut me off, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. "My mother showed me the letters. Beatrice." I froze. "Letters? What letters are you talking about?" "The letters you wrote to my father," she stated, her tone unwavering. 3 years ago. Intimate letters. She found them hidden in his study. My mind reeled. Intimate letters to Arthur? To Eleanor's husband? The absurdity of it was staggering. "Sophia, I never wrote any letters to your father. Never. You know my loyalty to your mother, to your family. 50 years of friendship." "This is insane," I pleaded, my voice rising. "Why would I ever do such a thing? You've known me your whole life." Sophia sighed, a sound of weary resignation. "They're in your handwriting, Beatrice," she said flatly. "And my father, he hasn't denied them. He hasn't said a word to defend you. He just looks so ashamed." Her belief in the evidence was unshakable, tainted further by Arthur's silence. The weight of her conviction was like a physical blow. In that moment, a chilling memory flashed through my mind, so sudden and vivid it made me gasp. Months ago, Eleanor had called, asking if she could borrow my personalized stationery, the kind with my monogram engraved at the top. She'd claimed she'd run out and needed it urgently for some thank you notes after a last-minute dinner party she hosted. I hadn't thought anything of it. I'd simply left a box on my porch for her to pick up. The pieces slammed together with a horrifying force. My monogrammed stationery, my handwriting, the intimate letters to Arthur, supposedly found 3 years ago, yet only now revealed. It all clicked. The letters were forged. Eleanor had taken my stationery, painstakingly copied my handwriting, Or perhaps had someone else do it and written those vile letters herself. The why still hung heavy, a dark, venomous cloud over everything, but the how was suddenly sickeningly clear. I ended the call with Sophia, a numb emptiness spreading through me. She wasn't going to believe me. No one was. I looked down at my purse, still holding the wrapped gift. The scrapbook of our 50 years. The pearl earrings. Something Eleanor never expected to see again. In that moment, it no longer felt like a symbol of lost friendship, but something else entirely. It held a power now. A quiet, unexpected power that neither of us had anticipated. After the phone call with Sophia, a strange calm settled over me. The shock had given way to a burning resolve. I spent the rest of the day, and much of the night, methodically piecing together every detail, every oddity from the past few months. Eleanor's sudden, intense friendship with Serafina Vance. The convenient request for my monogrammed stationery. The increasing number of cancellations from Eleanor for our usual coffee dates and book club meetings. Her bitter remarks about Arthur's late nights at the office, often delivered with a sharp, humorless laugh. It was all a twisted tapestry, woven with deceit. The next morning, I woke with a clear mind. I wouldn't hide. I wouldn't crumble. I would confront Eleanor. I chose my outfit carefully. A tailored skirt suit, dignified and professional. A statement that I was not a broken victim. I wanted to look strong, resolute, not the shattered woman she hoped to see. I gathered my thoughts, rehearsing what I would say. I hailed a taxi and gave the driver Eleanor's address in Westchester. The journey was filled with a mix of dread and determination. The elegant, sprawling house was a place of countless memories. Christmases, summer barbecues, birthday parties for Sophia, quiet afternoons sipping tea in the sunroom. Now, it felt like enemy territory. Arthur answered the door, his face a mask of shock as he saw me. His eyes darted nervously around the empty foyer, as if checking if someone else had seen me arrive. Beatrice? What? What are you doing here? You really shouldn't be here. His voice was low, tinged with panic. I ignored his plea. Arthur, we need to talk about these letters, I said, my voice firm, unwavering. The letters Eleanor claims I wrote to you. I met his gaze directly, allowing no room for evasion. Letters I never wrote, I cut in. Did you truly believe, after all these years, that I would betray Eleanor like that? That I would betray you both? A flicker of uncertainty crossed Arthur's face. Guilt, perhaps, or just confusion. His jaw tightened. He opened his mouth, as if to speak. But before a sound could escape, Eleanor's voice sliced through the air from the top of the grand staircase. What is she doing here? Eleanor descended the stairs, her expression a furious mask. Her eyes, usually so expressive, were hard and cold. Arthur, I told you I didn't want her anywhere near this house. Her voice was icy, but beneath the anger, I detected a sliver of fear, a tremor in her tone that she quickly tried to suppress. Eleanor, we need to talk. Alone, I stated, my gaze unflinching. This is important. Unless you want me to share what I know with Arthur right now. I let the threat hang in the air, potent and clear. It was a gamble, but I saw the fear in her eyes deepen. She hesitated, then her lips thinned into a hard line. 5 minutes, she snapped. In the rose garden. Not a second more. She led the way, marching through the elegant living room and out into the meticulously manicured garden, her back stiff with anger. The scent of roses, usually so comforting, now felt acrid. We stood facing each other amidst the blooms, the silence thick between us. Why, Eleanor? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, yet carrying the weight of 50 years. Why did you do this? Why did you destroy our friendship, our entire history, with such cruel, baseless lies? Her eyes flashed, and the carefully constructed anger seemed to crack, revealing a deep-seated bitterness. You've always been the perfect one, haven't you? She spat, her voice laced with venom. Always the good one, the kind one, everyone's favorite Beatrice. Everyone adored you. And me? I was always just Eleanor, Your sidekick. Your shadow. Her words struck me like physical blows. You had the easy life, the loving husband, the comfortable existence, while I always had to fight for everything. For Arthur's attention, for respect, for happiness. That's not true, Eleanor, I protested, my heart aching. We shared everything. We supported each other. She laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Did we? Or did you just always manage to come out on top? To be the one everyone praised? Her eyes softened for a brief, unsettling moment, a glimpse of profound sadness and weariness. You don't know what I've been through, Beatrice. You can't even begin to imagine. I have nothing more to say to you, and I don't want you here. I brought you something, I said, a last desperate attempt to break through her anger. A gift, something special that might help you remember. She scoffed, turning her back to me. I turned to leave, my shoulders slumping, feeling utterly defeated. As I reached the front door, Arthur suddenly appeared beside me, grabbing my arm gently. His eyes were wide with urgency, a silent plea. Beatrice. Wait, he whispered, his voice hoarse. My head snapped up, hope flaring. You knew? Then why didn't you say anything? He looked away, shame coloring his cheeks. I was afraid. Eleanor was so convinced, so angry. And Serafina, she was always there, pushing her, whispering things. He leaned closer, his voice barely audible. Beatrice, you need to look into Serafina Vance. She's changed, Eleanor. Eleanor is not well. She hasn't been for some time. He squeezed my arm once more, then retreated back into the house, leaving me with a new, unsettling piece of the puzzle. Serafina. Arthur's warning was a desperate plea, a breadcrumb leading me down a darker path. Arthur's desperate whisper. Look into Serafina Vance. Eleanor is not well, echoed in my mind. It was the first solid lead I had. Serafina, the woman who appeared out of nowhere and swiftly charmed her way into Eleanor's life. I knew I needed professional help, someone skilled in uncovering hidden truths in the digital age. My nephew, Daniel, worked in cybersecurity, a brilliant mind with a knack for digging up information. I called him that very evening, explaining the situation in a rush of words, emphasizing the urgency and the potential danger to Eleanor. 2 days later, Daniel called back, his voice grave. Aunt Beatrice, you were right to be suspicious. Serafina Vance is an alias. He paused, letting the words sink in. Her real name is Eleanor Pritchard, and she's used at least 3 other identities in the past decade. She's a professional con artist. My breath hitched. A con artist. The pieces began to fall into place with a horrifying precision. Daniel then explained Serafina's typical modus operandi. She finds wealthy, older women, Aunt Beatrice, befriends them, often through social clubs or charity events. She's charming, persuasive, then she systematically isolates them from their support networks, family, old friends, anyone who might see through her act. And then, well, things tend to go missing. Investments vanish, valuable possessions disappear. It's a classic grifter scheme, a master manipulator. I realized then that I had been the biggest obstacle, the longest-standing connection in Eleanor's life. The one person who could truly see her and might have detected the manipulation. Serafina had needed to remove me, discredit me completely, to ensure her scheme could proceed unimpeded. The forged letters, the public humiliation, the devastating email. It was all a calculated strategy to isolate Eleanor further, to sever her last ties to anyone who cared for her well-being. Daniel had more. I also looked into Eleanor's medical records, which was tricky, but I found something disturbing. Eleanor has been filling prescriptions for anxiety and confusion. High doses, the kind that can significantly impair judgment and memory. He sounded concerned. Eleanor is not well, Arthur had said. The words resonated with a chilling new meaning. It wasn't just old age or stress. Serafina wasn't just exploiting Eleanor's vulnerabilities, she was potentially exacerbating them, perhaps even deliberately over-medicating her to keep her compliant and disoriented. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. My friend, my Eleanor, was trapped, held captive by a predator, both emotionally and chemically. I knew a direct confrontation with Serafina would be useless. She would simply twist my words, reinforce Eleanor's paranoia, and cement her control. I needed to approach this strategically, delicately. I couldn't risk making Eleanor trust Serafina even more. My only chance was Sophia. I called Sophia again, steeling myself for her coldness. "Sophia, it's Beatrice," I began, my voice calm but urgent. "I know you're upset, and I understand why. But I have some information, crucial information, about Serafina Vance that I believe explains everything about your mother's recent behavior." "It's not what you think." Sophia was initially hesitant, her tone wary. "Beatrice, I don't know what you expect to gain. My mother is convinced." "I know what your mother is convinced of," I interrupted gently. "But what if I told you that Serafina Vance isn't who she says she is? That she's using an alias? And has a history of targeting wealthy women like your mother?" I laid out Daniel's findings, slowly, carefully, watching for any sign of recognition or doubt in Sophia's voice. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, Sophia's voice was softer, less certain. "An alias? What are you talking about?" As I recounted Serafina's patterns of deceit, the wall Sophia had built around herself seemed to crack. "Sophia, has anything valuable gone missing from your mother's house recently?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Something that might have been easily overlooked or blamed on someone else?" Another pause. Then, Sophia admitted, "Yes, actually, my mother's emerald necklace. The one from grandmother. She said the housekeeper must have misplaced it. We've been looking for months." Her voice was now filled with dawning horror. "And has your mother been forgetful? Confused? More than usual?" I pressed. "Yes," Sophia confirmed, the word barely audible. "She sometimes gets her days mixed up, and she's been so agitated, then very quiet. The doctors said it was just age, and gave her some medication for her anxiety." My heart ached for Eleanor, for Sophia, for the insidious trap they had fallen into. "Sophia," I said, my voice full of conviction. "I know it's hard to believe me right now, but please, trust our history. Trust the 50 years I've known your mother, not the few months Serafina has been in her life. I would never betray Eleanor. I'm trying to help her. What can we do?" Sophia asked, her voice tight with fear and dawning realization. "There's something I have," I told her. "Eleanor's 70th birthday gift. The one I never gave her. It might be the key to helping her see the truth, to breaking Serafina's hold. If you've been following my journey, you know the shocking truth we've uncovered. Now, the moment of truth is at hand. Will Eleanor see through the lies? Can a lifetime of friendship cut through the fog of deceit? Stay with me for this crucial next step. Like, share, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss a single part of this unfolding family drama." Sophia arrived at my apartment, her face pale and drawn, a reflection of the strain she was under. She accepted the cup of tea I offered, but her gaze was unfocused, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched the warm mug. The weight of what we had discovered, what Serafina was doing to her mother, lay heavy between us. Her eyes drifted to the coffee table, where the still-wrapped gift lay. The elaborate paper, the delicate bow. It looked incongruous, a festive package hiding a profound sorrow. "Is that it?" Sophia asked, her voice barely a whisper. "The present you didn't give her?" I nodded, my gaze fixed on the gift. "Yes," I said softly. "It represents 50 years of real friendship, Sophia, a friendship that Serafina has tried to erase, to replace with her own twisted narrative." With careful hands, I began to unwrap the gift. The elegant paper peeled away to reveal not the photo album I had first considered, but a beautiful, hand-bound leather journal. Its pages were filled, not with photographs, but with dozens of letters, written in Eleanor's distinctive, elegant handwriting. Sophia leaned forward, her eyes wide with curiosity, then confusion. "These are letters your mother wrote to me over the years," I explained, my voice thick with emotion. "She gave them to me for safekeeping a few months ago, right after Arthur had his heart scare. She said they were the words she'd want to be remembered by. Her thoughts, her feelings, her life in her own voice." Sophia reached out, her fingers trembling as she took the journal. She opened it to a random page, then another, and another. Her mother's words filled the pages, chronicling 5 decades of shared experiences, expressing profound trust, deep affection, and unwavering gratitude. There were letters from when we were young teachers, full of hopes and dreams, letters through our marriages, through the births of our children, through losses and triumphs. It was a tangible record of our unbreakable bond. My finger found a particular entry, one I remembered vividly, written just 6 months ago. I pointed it out to Sophia. She read it aloud, her voice cracking. "Beatrice, my dearest friend, what would I do without you? You are the keeper of my secrets, the witness to my life. If I forget all else, remind me of who we have been to each other." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes, streaming down her face. "It's like she knew," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "It's like she somehow anticipated forgetting, anticipated someone trying to make her forget." The raw anguish in her voice was heartbreaking. "I believe she did," I said, my own eyes burning. "I think, deep down, she sensed something was wrong. She trusted me with her truth, her legacy, just before Serafina fully entered her life and began to manipulate her." This journal, these letters, were Eleanor's own voice, speaking across time, a testament to our friendship that no con artist could fake or destroy. Sophia closed the journal, pressing it to her chest, her earlier hesitation replaced by a fierce resolve. Her eyes, still wet with tears, now blazed with determination. "We need to show this to Mom. Now. Is Serafina there?" I asked, knowing how crucial it was to speak to Eleanor alone. Sophia shook her head. "No. Arthur is taking Serafina to a charity luncheon downtown. He said they'd be gone for most of the afternoon. Mom will be alone." It's the perfect window. A surge of hope, mingled with a deep trepidation, swept through me. Could these words, written by Eleanor herself, penetrate the fog of medication and manipulation that Serafina had created? Could the truth of our friendship break through the lies? I clutched the journal, its weight a heavy symbol of our shared history and the fragile hope for reconciliation. We drove to Eleanor's house in tense silence. The journal lay on the passenger seat between us, an unassuming object holding the power to either shatter completely or begin to mend a broken world. The stately house loomed ahead, a fortress of deceit that we hoped to dismantle with the simple, undeniable truth of a lifelong friendship. The grand entrance to Eleanor's Westchester home felt unusually quiet, almost desolate. Sophia used her key, and we stepped into a silence that felt heavier than usual, a stark contrast to the lively hum of Eleanor's birthday party just days before. Every room seemed to hold a breath, waiting. We found Eleanor in the sunroom, bathed in the soft afternoon light, a book resting unread in her lap. Her head snapped up as we entered, her eyes narrowing in confusion, then flaring with anger. "What is she doing here?" Eleanor demanded, her voice sharp and brittle, directed at Sophia. "Christine, how could you bring her into my home after what she did?" Her body tensed, ready to recoil. Sophia moved swiftly, kneeling beside her mother's armchair, taking her hands gently. "Mom, please, you have to listen to me. There are things you need to know. Things about Serafina." Her voice was soft, pleading. Eleanor pulled her hands away, her jaw tight. "Serafina is my only true friend now," she insisted. Though there was a tremor in her voice, a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes that didn't quite match her defiant tone. "She's been so good to me." I stepped forward, my voice calm and steady, unwavering. "Eleanor. Her name isn't Serafina Vance. Her real name is Eleanor Pritchard, and she's a professional con artist. She targets wealthy older women, befriends them, isolates them, and then she takes everything." Eleanor scoffed, a dismissive wave of her hand. Nonsense. You're just jealous, Beatrice. Trying to turn my daughter against me again. Mom, remember the emerald necklace? Sophia interjected, her voice firm. The one you thought the housekeeper stole? It's not the first time things have gone missing since Serafina came into your life, is it? The mention of the necklace seemed to pierce Eleanor's conviction. Her eyes darted from Sophia to me, a flicker of doubt finally settling over her features. I pressed on gently, sensing a shift. Eleanor, those letters you found, the ones to Arthur, did you actually see me write them? Or did Serafina discover them while helping you organize your study? Eleanor hesitated, her gaze distant, as if sifting through a foggy memory. Serafina. Yes, she was helping me tidy the desk. She found them, tucked away. She was so upset for me, the confusion on her face deepened. I have never, not once in my entire life, written a single intimate letter to Arthur, I stated, my voice clear and absolute. Not in 50 years. You know that, Eleanor. You know me. Eleanor's brow furrowed, her confusion palpable now. Her head started to shake slowly, a silent tremor of disbelief. I gently placed the journal onto her lap. The familiar leather, the subtle scent of old paper. This was your birthday gift, Eleanor. The one I never gave you. These are your words, your letters to me, which you gave me for safekeeping. You told me they were the words you'd want to be remembered by. With shaking hands, Eleanor opened the journal. Her eyes scanned the first page, then the next. Her own elegant handwriting, the distinct loops of her E's, the confident flourish of her R's. She read slowly, silently, her lips moving almost imperceptibly. I watched as her face transformed, the anger draining away, replaced by a dawning recognition. Memories flickered across her features. The joy of Sarah's birth, the profound sorrow of Henry's funeral. Moments of shared triumph and comfort. I wrote this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. These are my words. My life. Tears streamed down her face, not of anger, but of sorrow, and a deep, aching clarity. The fog in her eyes began to lift. I've been confused, she finally admitted, her voice soft, broken. So confused. Serafina, she's been giving me new pills for anxiety. She said they would help me sleep. Sophia gasped. The high doses, Mom. Daniel found out about the prescriptions. She was over-medicating you. Just then, the front door clicked open. Serafina, impeccably dressed in a chic pantsuit, her hair perfectly coiffed, walked in, humming a cheerful tune. She stopped short in the sunroom doorway, her cheerful expression freezing as she saw us. Her smile faltered, her eyes narrowing. What's going on here? She demanded, her voice losing its sweetness. I thought we agreed Margaret wasn't welcome anymore. I met her gaze, my voice steady. Eleanor Pritchard, I said, using her real name. The color drained from Serafina's face, her carefully constructed facade cracking visibly. What are you talking about? Serafina stammered, recovering quickly. She turned to Eleanor, her voice suddenly cloying. Darling, these people are upsetting you. You need your medication. Come, let's get you something. She reached for Eleanor's arm, but Eleanor, her eyes now clear and resolute, pulled away. With a newfound strength, she slowly rose from her chair, holding the journal to her chest. She looked at Serafina, her gaze unwavering. You should leave, Eleanor said, her voice firm, no trace of confusion left. What I need is for you to get out of my house and my life. Serafina's elegant composure shattered. Her eyes darted around, searching for an escape, for a way to regain control. Arthur, she shrieked, her voice desperate. Arthur, tell them. But Arthur appeared in the doorway, phone in hand, his face grim. The police are on their way, Eleanor, he said, looking directly at Serafina. Or should I say, Catherine Wilson from Tampa, or maybe Evelyn Price from Chicago. Panic flared in Serafina's eyes. Without another word, she turned and fled, rushing out of the house. We heard her car screeching away moments later. The police arrived quickly, apprehending Serafina a few blocks away. Later, a doctor confirmed Eleanor had indeed been overmedicated, the high doses of sedatives and anti-anxiety medication clouding her judgment and making her susceptible to manipulation. Back in Eleanor's kitchen, the silence was thick, but it was a healing silence now. Eleanor, holding my hand, her eyes still red from tears, looked at me. "Beatrice," she choked out, her voice filled with remorse. "I am so sorry. For everything I said, everything I did. How can you ever forgive me?" I squeezed her hand. "It wasn't you, Eleanor. It was her." Eleanor wiped a tear from her cheek. "How can you forgive so easily?" I smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. "Because that's what friends do, Eleanor. Real friends. Our 50-year friendship, tested by cruel deception and almost shattered by a con artist's greed, emerged stronger, purified by truth, and bound by an unbreakable love.